To close the chapter and before we look ahead, with some time now having passed, can you take one final reflection of the 2023 season?
Yeah, I think the reflections are fairly similar as they were right after the season. I think real frustration, disappointment that we didn't get the results that we wanted to, and to miss out on the playoffs for the first time in a number of years was extremely, extremely disappointing. We obviously did well post-Leagues Cup. We just left ourselves far too much to do given the first sort of two-thirds of the season. We made a lot of changes in the summer transfer window, and I think we saw a noticeably improved team and roster, and we saw the results of that. But still, it wasn't quite enough to get us over the line and into the playoff. And ultimately, finishing 11th is far below standard that we expected. MLS is a really unique league, and it's really challenging to have the level of consistent success that we would like to see. Having said that, I think there are ways that you can counterbalance some of the rules in MLS, but it requires almost perfect execution, and we have to all admit that we fell short of that standard last year in order to get us to the level that we wanted to. And so I think the one thing as we look ahead to 2024 is that MLS is a unique league in where you can have seasons like we just experienced and then be able to return and become a team that can compete for trophies immediately again. And it's all down to how we execute and how we work moving forward. If we look at both the last MLS Cup champions in LAFC and Columbus Crew, LAFC, they both missed the playoffs the year before they won MLS Cup. So it's sort of the beauty and the curse of MLS, that it makes the level of consistent success that we'd like quite difficult. But when you do have seasons like we've experienced, it is also possible to recover quite quickly and get us back to a level that we expect. And that's going to be the expectation going into 2024.
Before we get into transfers, what did the offseason look like for you and Nick? Can you give some insight into how the process of evaluating the previous season works each year and the process of starting to plan for the next season?
Yeah, so the off-season is a bit of a misnomer, particularly for me and many of my staff, because it's probably the busiest time of the year. Obviously, we're not playing games, but for us, as we look at the roster, there's a huge amount to do every off-season. And so it was an extremely busy couple of months, as they always are. But I think as we reflected on 2023, I think we always try and do an end-of-season review to try and capture what we learned, both good and bad, after every season. I think it was really important after 2023 that we took that even more seriously, and we did an even deeper dive, and we tried to make sure we captured as many different viewpoints as we possibly could from across the sporting department to try to understand as many different factors that contributed to what we saw, the results that we saw in 2023, and ultimately put a plan in place of how we were going to achieve better results in 2024. And that's from across both signing players, coaching, human performance, every element of what we do at NYCFC, we wanted to improve and step up, and that work happened right at the end of 2023.
We'd already added important players in the summer transfer window, but what were your priorities going into this current window?
Given all the players that were returning, subject to being able to get Andres back, which we were quite confident in, but took a little while, we were going to return, I think it was around 92% of the minutes that played the last 8 games of the season, where we were at nearly a 2-point per game rate. And so that meant we were quite positive of the foundation of the group that we had in place. This was also the first transfer window in 4 windows where we weren't losing a player that had been absolutely critical and played a significant amount of minutes right before it. So if we look after MLS Cup, we had Jesus Medina and James Sands, who departed immediately in that window. In the summer of 2022, it was obviously Tati joining Girona. As we went into January, there was a lot of players with Sean and Maxi, Alex Cayenne, Antoine Tinnerholm, players that have been a big part of our club over a number of years. And then in the summer of last year, it was obviously Gabby Pereira. So we'd had a number of windows where a really important player or more had departed. And we were going into this off-season with what we felt was a really good base of a squad, but it obviously meant that we needed to add a lot of depth, competition, and we still had a lot of activity to do to get the squad and the roster to the level that we really aimed for.
We've had a very busy off-season in terms of transfers. For the fans that might not know the players that well yet, can you tell us a little bit about each player and why we felt they were the right fit?
Yeah, it's been a busy off-season, as I alluded to in previous answers, and we've done a lot of work, we've done a lot of business to try to bring players in. I'm really pleased with where we are, and being able to get the bulk of our squad and maybe the majority or all of our squad in place prior to the start of the season was a big aim for us. I think we've now got multiple high quality players in most positions across our roster, and that's going to allow for a really competitive training environment. It's going to drive the standards every day here at CFA, but also it's going to give Nick and his staff plenty of options of what they want to do leading up to a game and decisions during a game in order to affect the outcome. So I think we've ended with a really strong roster that I think we're all really proud of, and I'll talk through all the new additions, and we'll start with the goalkeepers. So starting with Alex Rando, he's got a really inspirational journey that I think should be an example to a lot of players in our academy and in our player development system, where Alex was part of an integral part of our academy when we won multiple national championships. He went off to college, and because we didn't have NYCFC 2 at the time, he actually joined a USL team and played there. But when we started NYCFC 2, he was a player that we wanted to join us and make sure we could try and see if we could continue his development. Joining our first team on a first team contract is just reward for his development and performance. And I think one thing I say regularly to all of our academy players and families is that every pathway for a player is different, and Alex is exactly that. Alex's pathway is different than James Sands, but to end up with a first team contract is fantastic, and we're looking forward to continuing his development here over the next couple of years. And then we knew we wanted this year to have 4 goalkeepers in our group to help with our training environment, and so when Cody made the decision to leave, Thomas Romero was immediately our number 1 choice. We knew him having been at LAFC in Toronto. We'd seen him play in the league. He has good international experience, and fits our style of play. Excellent shot stopper. He's good with his feet, and being also local and knowing us and knowing our staff made that a seamless fit. And so we're delighted that Thomas decided to join us. Strahenia joins us obviously from Serbia, and really fits the way we want our centre backs to play. I think we're really happy with both Burke and Thiago Martins and their partnership that they were beginning to form at the end of last season. But it was important that we added another centre-back who could compete with them. I think we've seen at our best our moments where we've had 3 really highly competitive centre-backs to play in our team, allows you to play different formations. And so Strahenia joins us, perfect age, he's 26, he's got lots of experience, he's played in multiple different countries, so he's been through that sort of moving process before. He's quick, he's aggressive, he's capable to play in a high line, he's good technically, and so we're excited for him to get here and join the team. Andres Pereira was, I think everybody saw at the end of last season what an impact he made on our team, and so as we entered the off-season, he was a really critical piece that we knew we wanted to add. We began discussions with Philadelphia pretty much immediately following the season, and delighted that he wanted to return. I think he showed with his performances at the end of last season what a fantastic fit he is for us on the pitch. He has different qualities in our midfield. He's really athletic. He can play box to box. We saw him score a goal, and we think he's got more goals to come. But he's also excellent winning the ball back, and I think he gives a really different dynamic in our midfield that will be very, very valuable across the season. And so, but I think it's one thing that maybe people didn't get the opportunity to get to know him as well as we did here, is what an excellent personality he is off the pitch. He drove our training standards. He was fantastic in the locker room, even for being another relatively young player, only 23 years old. He really helped to drive our performance at the end of last season. And so, yeah, he was a critical piece for us that we really wanted to, and delighted that we were able to bring him back and bring him back permanently. Hannes has a really fascinating and interesting background. It's not often that you get opportunities to acquire 24-year-old players who have played 100 plus games in either in Europe or in top 5 leagues, coming from a top Bundesliga team, and so when the opportunity arose for Hannes, we really wanted to make sure that we did everything we could to bring him to the club. He's incredibly versatile. He can play in any of the positions behind a striker on either wing or as a number 10. So he really adds versatility and different options for Nick and the coaching staff. He's quick, he's really dynamic, he's very intense both on and off the ball. He'll help us to improve our pressing game, which has been a key theme for us in pre-season. And again, joining us at really a fantastic age. We've got high hopes for the impact that Hannes can make and improve us in the final third. So Agustina Hayder was actually one of the first players we identified as we went through the recruitment process and looked at the options that we had on the table sort of at the end of the 2023 season. And Agustin, we all felt, was a really good fit for us. He's really quick. He likes to run in behind. I think we saw when we added Munsef in the middle of last year, what a difference it makes when we have players in our style of play who can attack space and attack the back line, and Agustin does that fantastically well. It's one of his big strengths. He's very good 1v1, he has good technical ability. He actually had a really strong end to the Argentina season, which made negotiations a little tougher for us, and so it took a little longer. But he was always a player that was a key target for us, and someone that we knew we wanted to add to our group. So to talk about Malachi, if we're going to try and find a silver lining to the results that we had in 2023, ultimately it put us in a place where for the first time in probably over half a decade, we had a high draft pick in the top 10. And so having a high draft pick meant there was an extra focus and attention, because we believed there would be an opportunity to draft a player who we felt could really impact our team, both this year and in years to come. Ultimately, so when we were at the number 8th pick, we were pretty surprised that Malachi was still available. We had him as one of the best players that we'd seen in college, and he had attributes that we felt would translate really well to the professional game. Malachi is a fascinating and incredible story and comes from an amazing family. And so we drafted him based on our belief in him as a player and the potential, without even knowing if he would leave college, because he was still unsure at that point whether he wanted to remain at Lipscomb and finish his degree or to start his professional career. And so we then went through a process both with Malachi and his family and his college to work through trying to make sure he saw what we believe was a fantastic opportunity for him in New York, and how much we believed in him as a player. And when we got the call that he was they wanted to sign, it was a really happy moment for us, because we really believe that he's a fantastic individual with a great personality, and we think he has a lot of potential. And finally, Jovan Mijatovic, who joins us from Red Star Belgrade. We knew we wanted to add another number 9. I think Munsef made a fantastic impact when we signed him in last summer, has had a really strong preseason, but we knew we needed to add more competition as a number 9. And when we got the information that Jovan might be available, we knew of Jovan. It's been someone that we were aware of, but we didn't think would come to MLS, frankly, and we didn't think, given the opportunities that he had in Europe, that we would be able to convince him to come. And so we spent a lot of time with him, and in great credit to him, he believed in New York from the second we spoke to him. He believed in the opportunity to come in, to develop. He's only 18 years old. He's got a fantastic pedigree. He's already played senior football for Red Star Belgrade, the biggest team in Serbia, and has played in the Champions League, played at the Youth Champions League, played for Serbia's U19s and youth national team. So he's got a really fantastic experience already, despite only being 18. And when you get to know him and know his personality, you really see that he has the drive to improve and the drive to maximize his career. And so we're in a position where we've got far more quality competition and options, particularly in that front line where we've invested most of our sort of new player acquisitions, and we're really excited for what's to come in 2024.
We signed several players to new contracts. Can you tell us about those signings and why those were important for the consistency in the team?
Yeah, it's often a forgotten part of sort of off-season plans, contract renewals, but it's a critical part to maintaining your squad and maintaining your team. I'm delighted that we were able to get all 3 done before preseason started, and all were incredibly important players. Not wanting to generalize, but I think Matt, Kevin, and Keaton also have similar attributes in that they're all entering the best years of their career. They've all shown and proven what important players they are for NYCFC and what important players they can be in MLS. And they're also players that have fantastic personalities, characteristics. They're excellent in the dressing room. They're really important for us in our community. And they're players that we know and believe can also improve even further from where they are. And so as we look ahead, not just to 2024, but to 2025, 26, 27, they were really important that we tried to make sure that they were among the players that will remain with the club as we move forward. To speak a little on each individually, Matt came into this team towards the end of last season on a consistent basis. I think he performed at a really high level, probably was a little frustrated that he hadn't had an opportunity earlier, but I think what showed was capable of being a number 1 goalkeeper in MLS. Made some really important saves for us, was kept a lot of clean sheets, and was an important part of our performances in that last stretch of games. Kevin, I think it would be difficult to predict when we drafted Kevin just what an impact he's had. What we knew we were getting when we drafted Kevin from everybody that we'd spoken to was a really hardworking, humble, was willing to learn and was willing to fight and prove himself, but also had a lot of football qualities, has excellent technical quality, really good physically, is able to play that left-back position exactly how we want it to be done, and has good quality in the final third. And Keaton, obviously somebody that all of our fans have known for a number of years, has been with us for a very long time, has passed 100 appearances with us. You know, I was delighted to see Keaton play so consistently last year. He'd obviously had a couple of years where he had been slightly disrupted with the injuries. To see him be able to have that consistent level of performance again and play so many minutes for us was really encouraging. Keaton's a really unique player, I think, and when we see the impact when he's not in and around our team and in our group, he's able to progress the ball. He's fantastic. He's really calm on the ball, and he gives a unique ability in our midfield.
The average age of the team is relatively young. Has this been a deliberate strategy, and what are the benefits of having a young roster?
So I think it's really exciting when you look at a roster that has a lot of players that are young, because those players will naturally and improve and grow in our environment with our coaches. And so, you know, probably the best examples we've seen at New York City FC are maybe a Jack Harrison, Tati Castellanos, are two that stand out in particular, that we saw, you know, join us and improve over their time with us. And so when you sign young players, you get a lot of benefit in that they're going to improve and develop over time and will be important players for us, but will be able to grow their careers and become even more important players for us in the future. And so I think that's really exciting. However, when I look at the roster, I look at it in a slightly different way. Matt Freese, James Sands, Burke Reeser, Thiago Martins, Kevin O'Toole, Santi Rodriguez, Hannes Wolf, Keaton Parks, that sort of core group of our team are all aged between, or will be 23, 24 to 29 this year. And so those are players that are entering the best years of their career. And so we definitely have some youth, and particularly on the sides and in our front line, there's a lot of youth. But I think we've got the core of a group that are actually entering the best years of their career, and that's really exciting. And so I think we've got, you know, multiple players who have played hundreds of senior games. So we've got experience in our group, and it's a group that we believe can both perform now in 2024, but also grow with us in 25, 26 and 27. And that's really exciting when you look at that roster.
Do you have specific goals for the upcoming season, and what would you define as a successful season?
Yeah, so I think the minimum expectation for us is to return to the playoffs. I think we know that you give yourself the best chance to in the playoffs and ultimately to compete for MLS Cup is by finishing as high as you possibly can in the Eastern Conference, and getting more home games. And we want to play as many home games in the playoffs in front of our fans as we possibly can, where the atmosphere is incredible and we know will drive our team on to give us an even better chance of winning. And so first and foremost, that's the goal. You know, we've got to return to playoffs, and we've got to return to a level that we hopefully can then go on a run and compete and get back to winning and competing for trophies again. I think with the depth and competition we've built across the roster now, we have US Open Cup, we have Leagues Cup. We're in a much stronger position, I think, for all of those tournaments where we know, fixtures, travel, all those things get heavy during an MLS season. So I think we've got now the competition that we should be able to compete for as many of those trophies as we can. The goal at New York City FC will always be to compete for trophies and to bring as many trophies back to our fans as we possibly can.
What are you most excited about this season?
Start of any season is always exciting. You've always got that excitement about what's to come and the potential and the opportunity that's in front of you. And I think the reality is that both players and staff have been itching to get back to competing since the Chicago game, because we were also disappointed with how that ended. And so we can't wait to step on the field this weekend and go to Charlotte and try to win. And so I think the thing that I'm most looking forward to is winning more games of football. There is no better feeling than being in the locker room, being on the pitch, celebrating with your fans when you've won games. And we simply didn't have that happen often enough last season, both at home and on the road. And so for us, that's something I'm going to look forward to is more celebrations, more moments with our fans, being able to celebrate wins and ultimately put us back to where this club and this organization expects us to be. I think the other part that I'm looking forward to is, we have a fantastic group of staff and a fantastic group of players. We spend an awful lot of time together on the road, in pre-seasons, and I'm really proud of the work that everybody does around the club in order to put us in a place where we can compete. And so I'm looking forward to spending more time with all of those people to help drive the environment that we need for us to go and get more wins.
Our academy continues to produce a fantastic stream of talent. What role do you imagine our homegrown players will have this season?
Yeah, I think we're incredibly blessed to obviously be based in New York and have access to the incredible talent that we do in the tri-state area. And so, it's a constant source of inspiration for me to see the work that happens out at St. John's and on the road with our, from our U12s all the way up to our U17s before they join NYCFC 2. And so we're really fortunate that we've got a fantastic academy that continues to produce players that we believe are of the highest potential. And now it's at the end of their academy journey, it's on NYCFC 2 and the first team to then turn that potential into performance, both for our first team and then potentially beyond as well. We've been signing very young players because we believe in their future, and I think it's also fantastic credit to them and their families that they believe in what New York City FC can also offer them. I think as those players now get older and you see them, we're going to have a few of them turn or have already turned 17 this year. They're naturally getting closer and closer to first team minutes and first team performance. I think we've got an opportunity with Christian McFarlane, who, 17 years old, has played significantly for New York City FC 2 last year, has been a regular with England youth national teams and is going to be in and around our first team this year and competing with Kevin for playing time. And so we see him having a really important role in our first team group, and we believe he's ready to step up and take that responsibility. But I think that comes off the back of consistent high performance for New York City FC 2 in MLS Next Pro, and Christian was able to deliver that last season, and that's allowed him to now sort of step into our first team group and be a player that we see progress and play a role for us. But I think all of the young players have enormous potential.
Entering its third year, how has the presence of New York City FC 2 helped further the development of players, and what should we expect to see from the team this season?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to underestimate the importance of New York City FC 2 and the work that they've done. We mentioned Alex Rando signing with our first team. We had Stephen Turnbull sign. We also had Nico Benalcazar, who made his debut for us last year and was an important player for New York City FC 2. So I think we're already starting to see the stories and the importance of filling that development gap between our U17 team and the first team. I think it's been fantastic, and that's really credit to many people across our organization that make that function, but specifically on the football side, to credit Matt Pilkington, Danny Sapero, Sam Pugsley, that really take a lead on making sure that team is set up to achieve its goals. New York City FC 2 for us is about player development. We are going to use that team to develop high potential young players to get them ready to play in our first team. And so I mentioned Christian in the previous answer, who played huge amount of minutes last year and is now, we believe, ready to take his next step and be sort of in our first team environment on a daily basis. Likely we're still playing minutes in the second team as well, as he becomes hopefully a first team regular in the years to come. It's a fantastic benefit that we have, and not only is it an opportunity for our academy as its primary use, but also for other players who are able to join that environment. And so the work that Matt and Danny and the coaching staff do is critical to our club, and has been a real big benefit for us. And as you look 3, 5, 7, 10 years ahead, that's going to be an absolutely critical part. And I think the growth of MLS Next Pro, adding independent clubs, adding more teams, more competition, is only going to enhance the ways that we can develop and get those players ready for first team football.
So we just wrapped up our preseason. How was it, and why is it an important part of the year?
Yeah, preseason is over. It's a long time on the road for players, staff, being away from families, but it's also a really important time where the group, both staff and players, can bond and get to know each other. And I've been pleased with what preseason looked like. We had a really clear plan of what we wanted to do from the first camp in Tampa, wanting to really increase our physical base and the physical capacity of our group and our team. And I think we achieved that. And then as we turned the page and went into Coachella, obviously we had a lot of games ending with the preseason friendly against Austin. And so I think we've seen our team grow. I think it's been a really important part for the group to spend time with each other. I think our performance levels have improved. I think we started to see a team that is competing well on the pitch against all the opposition that we've played. as always, it's early in the year and there's still more to improve. And so, we are focused on the areas that we want to improve. But if we look back at the plan that we set out for preseason, I think we've delivered against as much of it as we possibly could, and that's really encouraging. A massive part of preseason and the success of preseason is down to Nick and his coaching staff for the preparation and the work that they put in to try to make sure that we could deliver a really high quality preseason. And I think, it's been fantastic to work with Nick and see the impact that he and his coaching staff have been able to have on the players across the first 5 or 6 weeks of the year, and the implementation of our methodology, the style of play, helping our young players to improve. And you can really start to see that as you watch our games and how that impacts our style. And so I'm really excited to see all the work that Nick and his staff have done, and how that affects the team going into Charlotte and St. Louis and ultimately them for the rest of the season.
A slightly broader question now. It's an extremely exciting time for football in the U.S. with Copa America, the Extended Club World Cup, and the World Cup all taking place in the U.S. over the next few years, including a World Cup final in New York. What do you think this means for football in this country, and does it excite you from the perspective of these tournaments inspiring even more young boys and girls to play the game?
Yeah, it's an incredibly exciting time for soccer across the US and across the continent, but obviously even in New York City with the fantastic news that the World Cup final will be here in 2026. I think it's a moment in soccer and in this country that you get once in a lifetime. Obviously, the World Cup was here in 1994, which launched MLS as a league, and now we get the opportunity to use all of these incredible international tournaments that will be, in our home country to really drive the development of the game, both at the professional level and at the youth level. And so you mentioned inspiring young boys and girls, and I think that is what our magical sport and football has the capacity to do. We see the impact that football has in our community, and when that now comes to all these communities across the US at the highest level of the game, and people will get to see the best players in the world competing close to their own homes, I have no doubt of what it will be able to do in terms of raising the global level and the perspective of domestic football in this country. And I think MLS is well positioned. We've seen fantastic growth in our league, even since we joined in 2015 to now. And I'm really excited by what can happen over the coming years. And it's on all of us that work in professional soccer to make sure that we take advantage of these moments and we use the incredible opportunity that's in front of us to drive our sport to even higher standards. And I'm looking forward to being part of that.
Heading into the opening game of the season is always an exciting time of the year. What is your message to the fans as we kick off the 2024 season?
Firstly, we can't wait to see you. It's been far too long since we've been able to play games in front of you, and so we know that many of you will travel to Charlotte and St. Louis in our first couple of games, and then there was a return home to Yankee Stadium on March 9th. Getting to see you all there will be really incredible for us. Your support last season was absolutely incredible, even despite some of the disappointing results and knowing that we didn't get the results that we all want. From the minute that the Chicago game ended, every single focus and energy has been put to how we make sure that we're in a better position for 2024 to achieve the type of success that we want. And so it's been a huge amount of work from Nick, all of his coaching staff, from everybody involved to make sure that we put ourselves in the best position stepping into ultimately preseason and now ahead of Charlotte this weekend.